Official pick time for UFC 308. There's a gun to your head. The cartel is waterboarding you, saying, give me a pick. Who do you think's going to win this fight? That's what we're going to do for every single fight on the card. Life is on the line. We got to make some very, very complicated decisions on who we want our life to be in the hands of. Let's go through it. Start with the first fight of the night. Fakhretdinov and Carlos Leal. What a way to start the night. It's going to be real tough for me to not take the guy with the beard, no mustache, and an OV last name, especially when we're in Abu Dhabi. Okay, I'm just going to make that very clear. It's going to also be very tough for me to take a guy who I've seen in the PFL have his struggles. I think Carlos Leal was decent. I think he's decent. I think he's a solid striker. I don't think he's faced a wrestler like Renat Fakhretdinov. Okay, Fakhretdinov has very solid takedowns, very solid top pressure, very solid control. On the feet, I've been trying to fade him in the past, but that's usually against guys that have really solid cardio, push a pace, and are tough to take down. I faded him with Zaleski dos Santos, with Dalby. He still managed to go to a draw and pick up a win. Honestly, I thought Dalby could have beat him or could have edged the scorecards, but yeah, they were at a certain part of the world where that wasn't going to happen. Carlos Leal, not a guy that I think I'm going to be fading Fakhretdinov with. Just levels to this. I don't think he's faced a wrestler like Fakhretdinov. Give me Fakhretdinov to win this one. For the official pick, let's move on. Naurdiev and Bruno Silva. Now, Naurdiev, I know he's got a V at the end of his name. Take a look at him, all right? He doesn't look like the last one. The last one definitely looks like a V last name. This one, not so much. And he doesn't really fight like it either. I don't think Naurdiev is very good. I don't really think Bruno Silva is that good. But I think Bruno Silva has been at a much higher level than Ismail Naurdiev. Okay, Naurdiev got cut from the UFC already. He went 4-3 on the regional scene. He was getting knocked out by guys who are not good. Like guys that I know. There was a dude from PFL who's been knocked out like 5 times. That dude knocked out Ismail Naurdiev. The dude we saw in the Contender Series, Vadim Kutsi, knocked out Ismail Naurdiev. That dude got finished in the second round on the Contender Series. There's levels to this. I know Bruno Silva's old. I know he's not the best at protecting his neck on the ground. But I got to go with him, man. He's the underdog right now. And if I want my life in the hands of somebody in this fight, I got to go with the guy that's been fighting at the higher level in the UFC. Brendan Allen, Alex Pereira. Chris Weidman's old, but he was still an ex-champ. Okay, that's better than anybody Naurdiev has faced. And Naurdiev is an ex-welterweight. Kind of bounces around. Bruno Silva's been at middleweight for pretty much his whole career, if not his whole career. So I'm going to go with Bruno Silva, the Brazilian, in this one. It's probably the only V last name that I'm not going to take. Moving on, we got Basharat and Hugo. Farid Basharat taking on Victor Hugo. I think the line just keeps going crazy on Basharat. And if you watch my early picks video, at the time, I'm like, yo, Victor Hugo can win this fight. Because I don't think Basharat really makes himself stand out that much the way he fights. He's just very calculated, very technical, very, where would you call it? Cerebral. Where you would call it cerebral the way he fights. You know, a lot of feints, a lot of movement, got to pick his shots. He flows well. But I think Victor Hugo flows well as well. I think he can give him some problems off his back. If he's going to get taken down by Basharat, I think he can give him some problems. Throwing up triangles, throwing up just anything to make it hell for Basharat on top. I think he could do that. I think on the feet, I think he's got a lot more power. Now we got the new gloves. Don't really love that. But I do think he will make this fight close. But if there is a gun to my head, I'm going to take Basharat for the pick. Because I think he's probably just a little bit better. I just think this fight will play out a lot closer than what the odds entail. I think Basharat's up to like minus 800. That's ridiculous to me. I could see it being a 29-28 for Basharat, where he looks minus 200. Okay, Basharat is the pick, but do not bet on Farid Basharat. And if you do, call the hotline immediately. Because if he loses and he's in your parlay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say I told you so. Let's move on. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. That's a lot of man. Chris Barnett and Kennedy Nzechukwu. I don't think, oh, my God. If I got to put my life on the line for either of these guys, I'm dead. I am so dead. I don't want to put my life on the line for Kennedy Nzechukwu. Okay, the guy is not trustworthy at all. And if you watch the double leg breakdown I do on the other YouTube channel, I looked at his Instagram. The dude doesn't even have UFC fighter in his profile. He has like gym owner and fitness trainer in his profile on Instagram. Wouldn't the first thing you do when you're a UFC fighter be like, yeah, Instagram, UFC fighter? He's been in the UFC for a while. Does he already think he's out of the UFC or what? He's moving up to heavyweight here. Chris Barnett's been out for a while. I know he's going to be going in there with a heavy heart. There's hurricanes in his hometown. I think he's got some personal issues too. I don't know exactly what it is, and I don't want to throw it out there. But he's a big underdog here. It's probably rightfully so, because I don't think Chris Barnett should beat anybody on the roster. I don't think he should. But he's managed to do so in a couple fights. He's 2-2 in the UFC. So he can beat the odds. Kennedy Nzechukwu should have a lot more wins than losses, because he has all the tools. I don't know why he's moving up to heavyweight. Honestly, I think that could just be a way for him to not have to cut weight and just kind of take the sport a little bit more casually. A lot of red flags. A lot of red flags in this fight. Kennedy Nzechukwu is going to be the pick because I think he's the better fighter, but I would not trust him at all. And I guess I have to put my life in his hands in this spot because I can't take Chris Barnett. I know Chris Barnett could win, but he shouldn't. That's why I got to take Kennedy Nzechukwu. Moving on, we got Abus Magomedov and Bruno Ferreira. So I like me some Abus Magomedov this week because I know a lot of people like Bruno Ferreira. They like the round one knockouts. That's cool. That's cool. But if you can't get the round one knockout, what are you going to do? We haven't seen that in the UFC yet. We've also seen him get starched in round one. Abus Magomedov can starch people in round one. Now, he also could get starched, which is what I'm most worried about. But I think there's multiple paths to victory for Abus. I think he's the bigger dude. Solid kickboxing. Uses his kicks well. He's got good takedowns. Got good top control. Pretty solid overall game. I can't really say the same for Bruno Ferreira. I know he hits hard. I know he likes to move in and out, throw hard, but we saw him get taken down by Stoltzfus. We saw him start to slow down, and he found a spinning back elbow knockout. Cool, he's dynamic, but he was slowing down, and a lot of times when people start to use those spinning attacks, it's because they're getting tired. He landed one. He managed to land the second one and got him out of there. But if he didn't, I think Dustin Stoltzfus could have rallied and ultimately won that fight. I think Abus is just better overall. So I got to go with Abus Magomedov. Again, give me the OV in Abu Dhabi. Along the card, we got Mateusz Rebecki and Miktabek Orolbai. She give me Oral, then I say bye. Very, very close fight to me, honestly. I don't think Orolbai should be this big of a favorite. I am going to take him for the pick, though. I think Rebecki, if he was a little bit bigger, I just hate how small he is. I hate how limited his striking can be because he's so small. He's just got a wing overhand lefts. Everything's very telegraphed, especially when he gets tired, because he can't close the distance with much. He's got solid leg kicks. He's got good wrestling. I think he could find himself on top of Orolbai for a good amount of time in this fight. I think it'll be close. I think it probably goes to the decision. But I think Orolbai on the feet will be able to land some good shots, especially at range. He's going to be taller, longer, and I think his kicks are pretty solid. His striking is very, very basic, but it works for him. A 1-2, it works. And he can get takedowns on Rebecki. Maybe he has the better gas tank overall, too, because we've seen Rebecki slow down as the fight goes on in multiple fights. So Orolbai is the pick. He is my official pick. He's a little bit too big of a favorite, in my opinion, but I do think he probably scrapes by with the win. Along the card, we got Jeff Neal and RDA. I'm going to go with Jeff Neal here. I think Jeff Neal has the boxing to give RDA problems. I think he's got good enough takedown defense. I think RDA at 170 is very tough for him to get takedowns on guys unless your name is Brian Barberena. You could just throw a little wind at Brian Barberena. He would fall down and probably give up his neck. RDA, solid striker, solid everywhere. But I think the biggest gap here will be the power and just the volume and speed of the hands from Jeff Neal. Also likes to mix in a nice little body and head kick. That'll look nice to the judges. I think he probably scrapes by. I don't want to say scrapes by. I think he probably gets a win here. Probably by decision. I don't know that he knocks out RDA. Could see it because that left hand is deadly and that left high kick is deadly. But RDA has been through so many fights, and he's got pretty solid fight IQ. He would have to get caught with something nasty where he goes out. So give me Jeff Neal for the pick. That's the feature prelim, I believe. No, it's not. This is the feature prelim? According to the UFC website, I guess this is the feature prelim. Either way, Ibo Aslan and Rafael Cerquiera. Very weird fight because I just don't really know too much about either guy based on like the minimal amount of fights that we've seen. Ibo Aslan was knocking out cans on the regional scene, and really the only time that he's faced a UFC guy was the 2 times he faced Anton Turkalj, and he struggled in both fights. Now he won this last fight against Turkalj, round 3 KO. Cool. The first fight, though, he got choked out in the second round. I don't think he's had a ton of UFC level experience, but the same could be said for Cerquiera. 0. It's his UFC debut, but he's 11-0. He's been fighting bums in demo fight, but he looks pretty solid. I mean, he looks like a unit. He looks athletic. He looks like he moves well. He looks like his striking is pretty dynamic. He's not just he's a little bit more unorthodox than Aslan. Aslan is very plotty. Very your typical kickboxer type who's going to be looking to walk you down and land heavy shots. I think Cerquiera's movement will probably give him some problems. I think he could use his kicks out at range and just use his footwork to outpoint Aslan. And I think there could be moments where, he closes the distance with some flying knee or spinning back elbow or something like that where he could catch Aslan and put him in a bad scenario. Maybe he could try to mix in some grappling on Aslan. I know he trains with Jailton Almeida. We know how good Jailton Almeida is at grappling. So maybe he's got a nice little grappling game we haven't seen. I'm going to side with Cerquiera for the official pick just because I know Aslan's game. I don't think he has the highest ceiling in the UFC. And maybe, from what I've seen with Cerquiera, he's a little bit more dynamic, still undefeated. I like to see that. And a possible grappling advantage, I'm going to go with the newcomer here in Rafael Cerquiera for the official pick. Let's move on. I guess that is the feature prelim. To the main event. Not a main event. Main card. First fight on the main card. Magomedov and Arman Petrosyan. I think this is going to be a very, very close fight. I think Petrosyan can mix in some wrestling. I think he can get takedowns on Shara. I don't know that he's going to be able to do a lot with it, though. That's kind of the problem. I think if Petrosyan kickboxes with Shara, I think it'll be close. I think he'll mix in a couple takedowns, but I don't know that it's going to make a difference. And I think overall, Shara's movement and maybe a little bit more flashy techniques with those like side kicks, just his kicks are nasty. And I think it just looks better to the judges. And he's shown that he can go 15 minutes fighting off the back foot and still be effective. So I'm going to take Shara for the pick. But Arman has a very real chance to win this fight. And I think if he does it, it'll be by decision. And if he uses that grappling and if he can negate Shara's movement, I think he could win this fight. But Shara is the gun to your head pick because the robbery is definitely in question here. And, OV, beard, no mustache. Who does the UFC want to win? There's a reason they gave Shara Petrosyan. Petrosyan's a pure kickboxer. Not really going to mix in a lot of wrestling at all. They're giving him matchups that he should win. I think Shar probably gets his hand raised here. Let's move on. Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. Very tough one for me to call because Lerone has looked good, but he hasn't really had the same experience that Dan Ige has. And we always know Dan Ige is live, especially as an underdog, and he's a pretty big underdog here. But I do think this will come down to a decision, and I think it'll probably be a 29-28 for Lerone Murphy. I think Dan Ige will have his success on the feet at times, but the problem is he's fairly low volume, and his takedown defense is not the best. I think Lerone can probably push a pace on him, stay in his face, level change, chain wrestle a little bit, get back up to his feet, throw some jabs, throw some kicks, and rinse and repeat. Dan is an amazing boxer. I love watching his boxing, but he can get caught staring at times, and he can get caught on his back at times. I just don't see him winning a ton of minutes in this fight. I think Lerone will win the minutes. Ige might win the moments, and it'll probably come down to what the judges favor the most, and I think they'll probably favor Lerone Murphy activity. So I'm going to take Lerone Murphy for the pick, but I don't love it, especially at the price. Ankalaev versus Rakic. So I watched a lot of tape on this one because I really want to believe that Rakic can get it done. And I just hate Ankalaev's fight style. It's just so risk averse. It's just stands in front of you, leg kick, jab, move around. I feel like if he just wrestled dudes, he would win fights 30-27 pretty easily, or at least wear him down, and maybe he could find a late finish. But he's just so insistent on like being this striker at 205. It's like, bro, you're not that good of a striker. You might look okay because you don't take a ton of damage, but you also don't throw anything. The dude's so low volume, it's crazy. And the way he was getting his legs kicked off by Jan Blachowicz is just disgusting. Rakic, you got to be chopping at those legs early. Chop at those legs. But the problem is, once you chop at those legs and Ankalaev doesn't like it, he's going to level change and probably take you down. Now, Rakic has shown a pretty decent level of takedown defense. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. I'm interested to see if Ankalaev does wrestle. If he doesn't, I think this fight's going to be very close because I think Rakic is a solid kickboxer. And maybe Rakic could maybe level change himself. He's got pretty solid wrestling himself. I think it'll be a close fight. I think it'll probably be 29-28. But I do think it'll probably go to Ankalaev. I think it'll probably go to Ankalaev because he's got the V at the end of his name. He'll probably win most of the minutes. And I say he's boring because he's low volume, but he is very thought out, risk averse, and he usually just finds ways to win rounds, finds ways to win fights. That's why he's 18-1-1. So I'll take Ankalaev for the pick. It's a gun to your head type of pick, man. I don't like this fight whatsoever. There's a lot of fights on this card I don't really like for a pick perspective because there's big favorites, and I'm not really about that. But Ankalaev is the pick. Whittaker versus Chimaev. Now, if you watched my early picks video, I already told you this is a fight where I don't like either side from a betting perspective on the money line. I don't think Chimaev is tested in the middleweight division because he's never faced a top 15 middleweight yet, and now he's got to fight number 3. That's a big step up, in my opinion. And honestly, we've seen the blueprint is out on Chimaev. Not exactly how to beat him, but considering this is his first 5-rounder, or at least, I don't know, was maybe the Holland one a 5-rounder? I'm not sure. But either way, finished him in the first round. If this fight hits the final bell in the 3rd round, they got 2 more rounds. Okay, there's 2 fights that he had, Usman and Gilbert Burns, where it did hit the final bell in the 3rd round, but there was nothing left. This is the first fight where that could happen. And we don't know what's going to happen there. So, not a hot take whatsoever. It's obviously Chimaev early or it's Whittaker late. But I don't know that it's going to be like Chimaev's falling off a cliff to where Whittaker's just dominating him in round 4 and 5. Because if you look at round 3 against Gilbert Burns, Chimaev won it on all the scorecards. You look at round 3 against Usman, he won a round against Usman on the scorecards. I think Chimaev will take down Whittaker. I think Whittaker, this is the second training camp. Excuse me. This is the second training camp that Whittaker has had for Chimaev. And I guess the same can be said for Chimaev. But you've got to know the game plan. You've got to know the game plan if you're Whittaker. It's survive, weather the storm early, and take over late. And if he does go in here with that game plan, I find it pretty hard for him to get finished. He got finished by DDP, but he was a favorite in that fight. A lot of people expected him to roll over DDP or even just highlight reel, knock him out. So I don't know that he was ready. I think he should be ready for this spot. He's the underdog. He knows that. He should probably come in here and pick up a win if he can survive the first couple rounds. So I am going to side with Whittaker in a gun to your head type of pick because of the reasons I just laid out. You know the game plan. You go in there, implement the game plan. You execute the game plan, and you should win. So I'm going to take Robert Whittaker, but I don't love it. I don't love it because it's going to be a very sweaty first 5 minutes, first 10 minutes. And then we find out what Chimaev is made of. Main event, Ilia Topuria and Max Holloway. I love me some Max Holloway. I love me some Ilia Topuria. And I think Topuria wins this fight. But the problem is, these new gloves are the problem. Okay? Because if these were the old gloves, I'm telling you right now, Ilia Topuria's chinning Max Holloway. He's TKOing him. Maybe not like Volk, but he would stun him. He would put him out. But these new gloves, just the nerfing that has gone down with these new gloves, I can't really trust Topuria to knock out Max Holloway. And if this fight does go 5 rounds, we know Holloway gets stronger as the fight goes on. But I do think Topuria is a very technical fighter, a very thought-out fighter. I think he has a grappling advantage. I think his technical boxing is going to be faster and more powerful. He might not land more volume, but I think the moments that he will have throughout the fight will probably be able to get him, get his hand raised. Could he knock him out? With the old gloves, I would say more likely, but with the new gloves, I would say, yeah, it's going to be pretty tough ask for a guy that's never been knocked out. Could he submit him? Possibly, but I think he would probably have to hurt him before that. I don't think he's just going to take him down and improve his way to a position where he could finish him on the ground. He'd probably have to club him, sub him, or at least stun him a little bit, kind of like DDP did to Israel Adesanya. I think I might go the Ilia Topuria decision route, or maybe the over 4.5. But for a gun to your head type of pick, I'm going to Topuria. Topuria is my guy. I think he wins this fight. I think he's the best in the world. He's undefeated. I think he's got Max in the boxing department, power department, grappling department. I think he gets it done. Topuria is the pick, and I love it. I'm not really gonna bet it too hard though. I say I love it, but I'm not gonna be throwing my hard-earned money against Max Holloway just because Max Holloway is that guy. He is that guy, but I think Ilia Topuria is even more that guy. Okay, Topuria is the pick. I do like him to win, but this isn't a DDP bet where I'm betting $4,000. My biggest bet of my life on DDP against Adesanya. I like DDP a lot more in that fight. I like Topuria in this fight, but Max is a scary dude. No doubt about it. He's going to win, though. He's going to win. Ilia Topuria is going to win. Appreciate you for watching. Those are the official picks. Best Bet Show will be out tomorrow. We're going to make some money this week. We're on a nice little hot streak. We got bets out. I'll tell you where to get those bets in the next video, in the Best Bets video. Hey Drive Picks on IG. Stay up to date there. Till next time, we out.